here we are, the off season, guys.
Yes.
Let's turn the page, right?
Speak for yourself,
What's
right?
that?
Yeah, not you, Mr. Draft expert, every single day. All right, listen, the Hawks, they got to defend that title, right? We just heard it there. Several key defenders set to be free agents this season, from safety Kobe Bryant to corners Rick Woolen, Josh Jobe. Those three, by the way, accounted for a third of Seattle's interceptions and pass breakups, so this is not insignificant. Also worth noting, Devin Witherspoon, their cornerback, is eligible for an extension this offseason. So as they prove, defense wins championships.
Indeed it does.
Yeah, we got these expiring contracts. What should the top priority be?
Well, you saw Devin Witherspoon at the bottom of that screen. I think he'll be the top priority now that he's able to get that extension. You get that done early because the price tag is only going to go up, and we saw his performance in the Super Bowl. So as I look at that for Seattle, you're looking at different guys. You look at that safety position with Kobe Bryant. Ty Okada, he filled in for him. He did admirable throughout the course of the season. I could see them letting him walk. This defense is set up for that front four to get after the quarterback. How much are you willing to pay your corners, Rick Woolen and Josh Jobe, on the outside? Are you willing to roll the dice and maybe sign another veteran or look to the draft? Hey, the one thing that's beautiful as we look at that ceremony where they're going out there in the parade, when you win, everybody wins and guys get paid, because other teams throughout the course of the league are going to look at those guys that were on that screen and say, you know what, we want a talented player that has Super Bowl experience, and we're going to want to bring them into our program and let them lead. So they're going to have to let some of those guys walk and believe in what John Schneider has done and some of the other guys that he's drafted.
Yeah, the Seahawks' actions are going to tell you, who they prioritize as the building blocks. Devin Witherspoon, a high pick who's played like one, he should get an extension. And it should be a big one. Yeah. Seattle has a ton of cap space. I think fourth or fifth most in the entire league, the way they've managed their roster, the way they've managed their cap. So they're going to be able to make the choices they want to make. If one of the defensive backs who's a free agent prices himself out, they'll go find somebody else. If the running back, Kenneth Walker, who was Super Bowl MVP, if he prices himself out, my guess is they go find someone else. I think Rashid Shaheed is a free agent to watch. I think they'll make him a priority because I don't think he'll be a break the bank wide receiver contract, and he helps them in so many different ways in special teams and as a number 2 wide receiver. So I look for that, and then I'm fascinated to see what the choices are that they make on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they picked 32 as well in the draft. That's a nice little problem to have. You have to wait all the way until 32. I'll say this about the Seahawks, though, is think about some of the players that were significant contributors to this Super Bowl victory. Obviously, most notably Sam Darnold. They assigned as a free agent last year, but they also traded for and eventually extended Leonard Williams and Ernest Jones, defensive tackle and linebacker. You might see this team over the next few years enter a new phase, which is basically it's mostly in-house, right? Those big swings that you make either in free agency or on the trade market are a lot fewer and further between once you have reached this level of success and team building, because every dollar you spend means one less dollar to pay somebody else. Let's assume that Jackson Smith-Njigba and Devin Witherspoon both get new contracts this offseason. That's all great and well and good. You're already, though, planning about what it could look like for other younger players on your roster that are not even extension eligible. This is something that the teams that have sustained success have to deal with. As I said yesterday on the show, it's the single greatest problem to have in roster building in professional football. You got a lot of good guys, you got to pay them.
And I think as you talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba and the offensive side of the ball, you mentioned Darnold as well. Them not signing Darnold to that massive contract, it allows you to make some other moves.
Right?
And then you also look at this with Kubiak now moving on to the Raiders. From an offensive standpoint, I would assume they elevate within, as they've already interviewed 4 different candidates, just because if you just won the Super Bowl with the staff that's there, do you want to go change it from elsewhere? So now as you're looking at paying those players, who are the guys that now can carry the mantle and continue to move it forward?
Yeah, that staff had a lot of responsibility under Clint Kubiak. Again, he is out of the building. So what's the latest with the search for an OC?
They are interviewing 4 internal candidates from their staff yesterday and today, in and around the parade festivities. Mike McDonald has said that he would prefer continuity. Here are the names. Now, look, some of these guys, 1 or 2 of them, may be candidates to go with Clint Kubiak to the Raiders. But if not, I think, they're all good candidates for offensive coordinator there, as Mike McDonald wants to keep things moving the way they have been, and you can understand why. They just won the Super Bowl. They have to do a search. They have to interview external candidates.
And as we saw, Jackson Dart had a very solid season as a rookie, despite not starting a game until week 4. Over that span, he led all quarterbacks in rushing yards, top 2 in rushing touchdowns. Even though though actually he missed 2 additional games at that point. From a passing standpoint, Dart ranked just outside the top 10 in QBR passing touchdowns per interception. Pretty good stuff. And in Field Yates' brand new mock draft, which is dropped on ESPN.com, he has the Giants going defense. Safety Caleb Downs from Ohio State. Okay, and we know that John Harbaugh's in charge, and he comes from Baltimore, that defensive DNA. Why did you have him going to that side of the ball?
Well, as J-Mac knows, you can never have enough good defensive backs, even though corners are the superior players.
I'm just happy. I'm just happy you said it.
Let's get that out of the way. Right.
I just want to make that part very clear here. But John Harbaugh has perhaps witnessed as much great safety play as any head coach of this generation, maybe ever, right? He began his coaching career as a head coach with the Ravens with Ed Reed, a gold jacket player. Most recently, he coached Kyle Hamilton, an incredibly unique player, as an all-pro for the Baltimore Ravens. Caleb Downs might be the most complete player in the entire draft class. There's not really anything he can't do. He's been at Alabama, at Ohio State. He's played as a center fielder and showed off range and ball skills. He's basically been a linebacker in a scheme as well. He may not be the size of a linebacker, but he has a physicality and a toughness. He's played under great defensive minds at both Alabama and most recently at Ohio State. Not a glaring weakness in this player's game, and in an exercise that can sometimes be very futile and difficult to actually figure out. I think you can do a whole lot worse than what feels like a home run in Caleb Downs.
You like that? DB at 5?
I do. What I like about Caleb Downs is what you just said, versatility. And when you talk about John Harbaugh and you talk about safety play, y'all know you love Kyle Hamilton.
Yes.
He's a guy that came in as a safety, and you assumed he was going to be a middle-of-the-field player, a rangy player. And then next thing you know, he's down at the line of scrimmage, and he allows other people to do other things within that defense. So I think for the Giants, you just signed Javon Holland a year ago to a massive deal. You drafted Tyler Nubin, who's there, more of a strong safety type of player. How can you move those guys around to help complement a guy like Caleb Downs? I think that's the big thing with that, getting guys that are versatile pieces. And then on top of that, what they have up front. Like, you have guys that can get after the quarterback. My only concern would be, is getting more help for Jackson Dart. Can you get a receiver opposite Malik Neighbors? Are you bringing Jermaine Illuminor, the right tackle, back to keep your quarterback safe? Those are going to be the questions of how much you can build around your young quarterback.
And that's the thing. It's the number 5 pick. So, like, franchise cornerstone is the goal, right?
Yes.
At whatever that
Good
position
point.
is. John Harbaugh's not used to picking this high. The Giants are. And no, I'm not kidding. That's true, though. I mean, they know, like guys like Abdul Carter and Malik Neighbors who pick in these ranges. So that's what I think. So my question on Caleb Downs is, like, is he that guy? Is he Kyle Hamilton, who was the 14 pick? But there's a big difference between 5 and 14 in terms of value.
Yeah, Kyle unfortunately fell because of his speed. Right, he had a slower 40, close to 4.6, which as a safety is apparently a no-go. You got to drop all the way down to number 14. What's helping the case of Caleb Downs? 2 things is, first of all, this is not some otherworldly draft. The number of blue chip players is very low compared to some of the recent drafts we have had. 2 is, think about what's happened in the Super Bowl this past Sunday. Like, Nicky Manwari plays for a defense where he might be the 3rd safety. He's also the nickel for Seattle. You can have defenses where you're playing with 5 or 6 defensive backs on the field, 60 or 65% of your snaps, that even if you now have 3 legitimate safety investments, that might be enough because you're justifying these players all as starters. More like your 3rd safety probably plays more than your starting defensive tackle.
I mean, he was a Swiss Army knife, right?
Yeah. So
let me ask you something, Graz, and I don't know how much we actually know about this. We remember all those discussions when Harbaugh took over the job, right? About how much he would have over personnel in terms of overseeing that. And you figure Baltimore built one of the best rosters in football, right? Great scouting department. Like, what kind of impact have we seen John Harbaugh have so far?
You've already seen some moves, come behind-the-scenes moves in the building, guys who have been there, people who have been in positions that have been shifted into different positions after decades with the organization, some real mainstays. So John Harbaugh has already set about constructing this thing his way. And in terms of who gets to make the pick, him or GM Joe Shane, that could be semantic to a certain extent. But I think John Harbaugh's influence is not at all in question.
Which one makes $20 million a year?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And I think that's a good point, a good question, Hannah, because now when we look at their roster, because you can say, hey, you paid Javon Holland, you drafted Tyler Nubin, Drew Phillips has been your slot guy, and you can look at Caleb Downs and say, hey, is he a luxury? But when you bring in a new head coach that has some say in the roster, you got to go get guys that he feels like are his guys and are going to set the tone with the right mentality.
And quickly to the Manwari comparison, this Giants defense likely to be conceptually similar to what Mike McDonald, who came team from Baltimore runs in Seattle.
Yeah, got a lot of bang for your buck, right? With the right player. All right, so what's on trend heading into the NFL season? Several teams making these head coaching changes from a defensive guy to an offensive-minded coach. Obviously, the Bills handing the reins to their former OC, Joe Brady. They had the most efficient offense in the NFL under him since 2023, ranked top 5 in points per game and yards per play. Do you think that continues, Graz, with Brady as the head coach?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because the offense did kind of level off a little bit in some ways this year. And the reliance on the run game when Joe Brady took over a couple of years ago worked very well for a while, but it seems like teams were catching on, and their inability to be explosive in the pass game was a problem. So even if Sean McDermott had stayed, I think Joe Brady's assignment would have been to come up with some new ideas for how to re-energize this offense. That remains, I'm sure, part of his assignment in addition to taking over head coach roles, which is a role he's never had before. I think there's a lot of work ahead for Joe Brady.
Talk about a lot of work ahead. Let's go to Atlanta. The Falcons bring in Kevin Stefanski, hoping to build a franchise that has been a top 10 scoring offense only once since their last playoff appearance back in 2017. By the way, the Browns ranked 29th in scoring offense under Stefanski, something you may not have realized. He was Coach of the Year a couple times. J-Mac, does this continue for the Falcons, this trend downward?
Yeah, I believe so. And I think the addition of Stefanski, I think he had years as a really good play caller. But in order to be a top 10 offense and put up a lot of points, you got to have a quarterback. And right now in February, we're still unsure of who the Falcons quarterback is going to be. Michael Penix is dealing with an injury. Kirk Cousins probably going to be released. Do they bring him back? A lot of question marks around that quarterback position.
Yeah, he may be sitting at a desk like this next year. Who knows? With Kirk Cousins. To Atlanta as the Cardinals hired their first-year head coach, Mike LaFleur. So, of course, we're going to get that mixed up all year. Mike, Matt. They threw the ball more than any other team this season, but they ranked in the bottom half of the league in passing metrics. So, Field, when Murray was healthy, that offense wasn't very good. Do you expect that to continue?
In the short term, I do, because as we sit here on February 13th or 12th, whatever it is, I have no idea where the quarterback carousel is going to spin and land for Arizona. We'll talk about Kyler Murray in just a moment, but they're picking 3rd in the draft. Probably not the year to be taking a quarterback number 3 overall, and this veteran free agent market is incredibly unpredictable. I would not say there are a bunch of names that inspire confidence that this offense can turn things around. It will be nice, though, to have running back James Conner, the heart and soul of that offense, back next season.
Okay, so what is the scoop? What's going on with Kyler?
$36.8 million guaranteed this year. And if he's on the roster 3rd day of the league year, which is a little more than 5 weeks from now, another $19.5 million in 2027 salary becomes guaranteed. So he's going to be tough to trade unless they're willing to pay a big chunk of that money. And if they can't get a deal done by March 15th, they don't want that 19.5 for next year to kick in. So he likely ends up getting released in that situation. So the question is, what are they willing to do to facilitate a potential trade? And then where do they go from there after Kyler Murray is no longer on the team? Jacoby Brissett is under contract for 1 more year. So he did finish the season pretty strong as their starting quarterback.
We love Jacoby Brissett.
I'm saying, like, as bridge guys go, right, you could do worse.
Yeah,
and
exactly
he's been in a lot of different situations. Jacoby Brissett was Tua's backup. He was in Cleveland and all of the shots. So he is a leader and a guy that you can rely on in those situations. I look at this for Kyler Murray. You have to imagine at some point throughout the interview process, LaFleur and Monty Ossenfort, the general manager, they all had a discussion of what the ideas were around Kyler Murray. I think to Graz's point, when you start looking for trade partners, what is another team willing to give up? If they are able to eat some of his salary, are you willing to give up Kyler Murray for a day 3 pick? Is he worth a 2nd-round pick? I think those are going to be the question marks for Monty Ossenfort. Like, what are you willing to give Kyler Murray up for? Because his value, I think, can be very different across the league. There's potential with him at quarterback, but I don't know that a team is willing to give up the farm in order to get Kyler Murray at this point.
I wonder if the Cardinals might have to send a pick.
As
part
of
the
Brock Osweiler.
Can I ask you really quickly, Field, though, because we've seen what happened with Sam Darnold, right? And I don't know if Kyler Murray is a good comp, but is it possible for him to go to a different place under a different coach and really blossom as a quarterback?
Totally. He's got plenty of talent. There was a year in which it was past the halfway point, and we were talking about Kyler Murray Murray is the MVP frontrunner.
Yeah.
Let's be clear, though. This feels like one where a change of scenery is best for all parties involved, right? Kyler, I think, would be happier with an opportunity to restart his career somewhere else. And for Arizona, you can kind of clean the books up a little bit and get this offense slowly, perhaps, building back up. There's a part of me that wants to say this offense has some sleeping giant potential because they've got some serious investments. Maybe the best tight end in the NFL in Trey McBride, a guy that took 4th overall, who some called a generational prospect in Marvin Harrison Jr. And then Michael Wilson last year played like the player that we thought Marvin Harrison Jr. was supposed to be when Marv was on the sidelines for them. Now, they got to clean up the right side of the offensive line in a major way, but there's just so much uncertainty around that quarterback spot. I wish I could pull out a crystal ball or Adam Schefter's drafted tweets and tell you what's going to happen a month from now in free agency at quarterback for the Cardinals, but until I have more clarity on that, it's hard for me to see this team making a gigantic leap forward in offense, especially in the division they play in. It's the most stacked division in the entire league.
I mean, just climbing out of the basement is like climbing Mount Everest, right?
And listening to what Gras said as far as like the value of Kyler Murray, a team like the New York Jets, who have a ton of cap space, do you maybe entertain if you don't have to give up a lot to get Kyler Murray, to get him in your building with the hope of what you just mentioned? Hey, we just watched Sam Darnold, who we drafted a high overall 3rd, and we watch him now go win a Super Bowl. Could we possibly bring Kyler Murray over here and maybe he has a turnaround? And if he doesn't, we can cut ties with him and move forward after not giving up a ton to get him in the building.
You know, I think is the most intriguing Kyler Murray team. No information here. This is simply just
that's
like
what we're talking about.
I'm throwing at a team that I think would be fun and logical and would be interesting. Minnesota Vikings. You know, I think it's obvious they're going to do something at quarterback this offseason in the veteran ranks, right? Whether that means a veteran who you bring in to play if things don't go well for J.J. McCarthy, or a guy to come in and challenge J.J. right away. But Kevin O'Connell, something of a quarterback connoisseur, a team that obviously is unsatisfied with what happened last year, right? They went into last year thinking they would compete for a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They did not, obviously. They came up quite short. Yeah. But Kyler would give them some energy and some competition in a room and maybe bring out the best in J.J. McCarthy, because maybe there is something there that motivated Minnesota to trade up one spot and take him 10th overall.